Cruise news time. Well, the CDC is up to it again. They got some new recommendations for cruising, and they even got a new color for Florida. Is this the end? Are they trying to shut down cruising? Some have said it. Let's talk about it. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Lido, Loca. I'm your host, Tony, here with the latest cruise news updates. Well, I've got a few cruise news stories for you today. A lot of it's going to revolve around the CDC, and I see it a lot in the comments. Real interesting replacements of the word for CDC, and a lot of folks out there think that the CDC is trying to shut down cruising. And look, they just dropped a whole new bunch of protocols on cruising. They've given Florida a new color. We're going to look at all of that. We're going to see if the Norwegian Gem has stayed green since it's been cruising. I'm going to tell you about a couple stranded in Athens, Greece, and then we're going to answer the question, is the CDC trying to shut down cruising? It's a lot to cover today. Look, welcome to Sunday. Welcome to the beginning of another week. But before we get to that cruise news, which honestly probably isn't that important, let's get to what's important. A lot of people in the comments yesterday said, what happened to your beard? Now, I'm assuming they understand what shaving is, so maybe they're just saying, maybe that's a way to say, why did you shave off your beard? I hope, because if people are like, don't understand that I shaved my beard and they just thought something weird happened to my face, well, then they got whole different kind of problems. But yes, I shaved yesterday. Why did I shave? I don't know. Sometimes I'm in the mood for a change, especially, had a challenging day on Friday. I said, well, let me do something that I can take control of, and let me shave my face. Look, I had turned 50. I was curious as to what was under here. I haven't really shaved my face since we've been in the pandemic, and I gained about 80 pounds. So I'm like, well, how fat do you look under there, Tony? Look at this. There's a lot going on there. Look, that's it. I just shaved to see what my face looked like right now. And then also I'm going on this cruise in Alaska in 2 weeks. I got some new masks. I'm just trying to figure out the best way to wear a mask for long periods of time. I didn't know if the beard was helping that, not helping that. And so, just the cool thing. The cool thing with my beard is it will grow out. The sad thing about the bald spot that's forming on the back of my head, it will not. But anyways, that's the mystery solved. If you were concerned that I maybe walked through some sort of scanner and part of my hair had fallen out, nope, it was just a traditional, old school shaving the facial hair. Hope everybody's comfortable with that. All right, let's talk about the nightmare couple story, another couple stranded testing nightmare that we're all dealing with. And look, I got to make an appeal to the cruise lines. Let's just make the appeal right now before we even go cruise news. Cruise lines, leadership at the cruise lines that watch this show, look through the comments for the last couple weeks. Cruisers are struggling with this pre-test requirement. A lot of people are getting it done, certainly. You've got good numbers to suggest that people are able to get the test before the cruise, but nobody is seemingly having a great time doing it. It's an extra level of stress. It's an extra level of expense. And if you could, figure out some way to offer testing at the cruise terminal on embarkation day. It sounds to me that people are okay if they show up in embarkation day and get turned away because they're positive at the cruise terminal. They would rather go through that than try to jump through these hoops and get a test. And it seems like most people are willing to pay for it. So just an impassioned appeal to the cruise lines. If you could somehow get testing at the port, even if it's something that you set up that people can go through, please do that, because people out there are struggling. And then let me hit the drum one more time. In the current situation that we're at, the cruise lines don't seem to be bending the rules when it comes to people showing up at the cruise terminal without their negative COVID test. Regardless of whatever they did before they got to the terminal, whether they had a bad time with the pharmacy, whatever, when you get there, if you don't have the negative result, they're not helping people out. And that's the stance it seems like they're taking right now. And so as people that are cruising right now, it is up to us to have our negative COVID test when we show up at the terminal. So two things there. Cruise line, please. And look, jump in the comments and say, cruise lines, please do testing at the terminal if that's what you believe. But at the same time, I got to give the responsible message that if you're cruising right now, you got to make sure that you got your test. But now let's talk about another couple that's been married for a long time, 46 years, a couple from North Texas. They flew to Athens, Greece, with the goal of going on their dream anniversary cruise around the Mediterranean. They got to Greece. They were tested going into Greece, and the lady tested positive for COVID. They were taken and they were quarantined for a period of time. They were put into a small apartment, and then unfortunately during that first quarantine, the husband also tested positive for COVID. And so now their quarantine extends. And so it turns out for 19 days, this couple, whose whole goal was to leave North Texas and go to Greece and go on a Mediterranean cruise, they spent 19 days in a small apartment type hotel room under quarantine until they could both test negative for COVID, and then they were finally released from quarantine. But what's the point of this story? Are we trying to scare people that you could get quarantined if you try to go and cruise? Now, the point of the story is this. When you're cruising right now in 2021, there are hoops to jump through, and there is some inherent risk that you could show up, test positive, and be quarantined. But the thing that the big nugget that came out of this story is the gentleman said very specifically, Norwegian, that was the cruise line they were on. They worked with them. They were very happy with what Norwegian was doing. And then on top of that, they were super happy that they had travel insurance. So again, one of my favorite notes to play in this symphony of cruise restart music is make sure you have your travel insurance. And so, yeah, they were happy. They were together. They celebrated their anniversary. Unfortunately, they didn't get to go on their cruise. Hopefully, they will get to go on their cruise. They're back in Texas now, and they feel like most of their expenses will be covered because of travel insurance. Don't travel without travel insurance. All right, let's talk about what's going on with the CDC. They had a big announcement on the 27th of August. We're going to jump into the computer. Before we do that, let me quickly invite you to subscribe. If you like staying up to date with everything that's going on in cruising, please consider subscribing with the notification bell on. The reason I say notification bell is I try to answer comments for the first hour. When the video goes live, I do my best to respond to every comment or give a heart to every comment in the first hour. So if you really have a question for me, if you want some sort of interaction, the first hour is a great way to do that, and the easiest way to know you're in the first hour is to get notified when the video comes out. Subscribe, notification bell. Thank you in advance. All right, shall we jump into the computer? Here we are. We're on the COVID-19 Operations Manual for Simulated and Restricted Voyages under the Conditional Sail Order. Simulated, those are test cruises. Restricted are cruises that have paying passengers that have restrictions on them. That's what the CDC calls their paying passenger cruises, restricted cruises. Here we go. On the 27th of August, they came out and they changed some language. Now, I'll read this to you. Again, we're trying to decide whether the CDC is trying to stop cruising or not, because this is important to all of us people that love cruising. Added language advising cruise ship operators to voluntarily reconsider the following mask policies: allowing fully vaccinated crew to remove mask indoors in areas inaccessible to passengers, designated areas only accessible to fully vaccinated passengers, and crew where mask and physical distancing are not required. Also, advising passengers in cruise ships with 95% of crew, 95% of passengers who are fully vaccinated that they do not have to wear a mask or maintain physical distancing in any area. This change was based on the CDC's guidance for fully vaccinated people and the increased transmissibility of some SARS-CoV-2 variants of concern. Well, what the heck does this mean? It means the Delta variants flipped the script. How about that? When cruising started in June and July, I went to the Bahamas. I had to take a test to get on that cruise ship. That was kind of odd because I was fully vaccinated. They implemented that test about 2 days before I got there. They did it at the cruise terminal. Easy peasy. But once I got on the adventure of the seas, I was able to cruise mask-free with very little social distancing. If you look at Carnival's restart, their whole goal was to have cruising as normal as possible. They went with 95% vaccinated guests. They put people on the cruise ships, and they did not require any physical distancing and any mask. This was all within the CDC's guidance. If you've been tracking along with it, you know that the original guidance that said vaccinated people don't really need to be tested, they don't really need to wear masks, they don't really need to social distance, was based on the way the vaccine worked with the original version of the virus. They found that when there were breakthrough cases, which were very minimal, breakthrough case is a vaccinated person that gets infected with the virus. virus when there were breakthrough cases, that the viral load from the vaccinated person was minimal, really a minimal chance of them spreading the virus in a huge way. But what they found with the Delta variant is that there are breakthrough cases, still not many breakthrough cases, but in breakthrough cases that the viral load in the vaccinated person is as high as the unvaccinated person. And so now you have the CDC trying to walk back a little bit of that language. Hey, we said that if they were vaccinated, they didn't have to wear a mask. If the crew members are vaccinated, they didn't have to wear a mask. Well, right now, because of what's going on with Delta, let's change that. Even though we've given you the discretion, now we suggest, they're not mandating, now we suggest that you don't do that. And then there are cruise lines out there that are cruising with vaccinated and unvaccinated passengers. On those cruise ships, they would make areas for vaccinated only people where they would, they wouldn't be as strict about masking and social distancing, all within inside the guidance of the CDC. Now the CDC is saying, maybe you should change that. The second section here talks about testing. The CDC is now recommending that cruise lines should require passengers to get tested prior to coming to the cruise ship, whether or not they are vaccinated or not. So they're saying that all passengers should show up to the cruise ship with a negative COVID test. Does that sound familiar? Yeah, because the cruise lines are already doing that on their own. The cruise lines were doing something that was more protective than what even the CDC guidance was. And now the CDC has adjusted their guidance to somewhat come in line with what the cruise ships are already doing. And then finally, the last paragraph in the update here said that they made a special color for the state of Florida. And we'll cover that because we have to do this. I promised that we would keep an eye on the Norwegian Gem. You know, the Norwegian Gem sailing with 100% vaccinated guests, 100% vaccinated crew. We're all watching and waiting to see whether or not their color changes from green to any other color, and that would be a good time to talk about Florida's new color. So let's jump over to that. All right, we're gonna slide through and see what the Norwegian Gem is. Are they still green or have they changed? Let's get down to Norwegian. Norwegian. Ooh, Norwegian Gem. Orange. What does that mean? Well, that means there's been at least a reported case of COVID on board the Norwegian Gem, or a COVID-like illness. Let's jump over one more tab and we will look at what the colors actually mean. All right, here we go. A green cruise ship means that there's no reports of COVID-19 or COVID-19-like illness for 7 days, as determined by a qualified medical professional, and on time by 12 o'clock Eastern, daily submissions of the EDC form during the last 7 days. So this is interesting. For a cruise ship to change from a yellow or an orange back to a green, there has to be a 7-day period where there's no reports of COVID or COVID-like illness, and that cruise ship had to have submitted their daily report to the CDC. So look, like no other business that I know of, on a daily basis, every cruise ship is reporting to the CDC whether or not there is COVID or COVID-like illness. I know a lot of people out there questioning whether cruise ships are safe. Give me another business where the business is going through all of these protocols and reporting to the CDC on a daily basis how they're doing. I don't know of one. Orange, this is what the Norwegian Gem is. COVID-19 or COVID-like illness has been reported in the last 7 days, and the ship is below the CDC's investigation threshold. For restricted voyages, that's voyages with paying passengers, that's what the Gem is. Cases reported are less than 0.1% of passengers. So if there's 6,500 passengers on board, you would need 7 passengers for that to kick off the investigation threshold, and no crew cases are reported. So what can we glean in regards to the Norwegian Gem? Well, that means the Norwegian Gem has at least one COVID-19 or COVID-like illness being reported on their daily report to the CDC. But it's not enough to be investigated, and no crew is involved. That's what orange means. There's also the guidance there for simulated voyage, the test cruises. Let's look at the yellow. The ship is at or above the CDC's investigation threshold. Cases at 0.10%, the same scenario above, but one or more crew cases are reported. That's important. They're above the threshold to be investigated, or one or more of the crew cases are reported in that. The other interesting thing here is that if passengers disembark the cruise ship and they go back to their local community and then they test positive to the local or health authority and is contact traced back to the cruise ship, this could also turn the cruise ship yellow. So CDC's even looking at when people go home And then again, on all of these, if the cruise line stops doing their daily reporting or they don't respond to the CDC in a timely manner, this can also change their color. And then the red cruise ship, sustained transmission of COVID or COVID-like illness, potential for COVID cases to overwhelm the onboard medical resources. And then in addition, there's some other factors that the CDC is considering if they're going to make a cruise ship red: the percent of passengers and crew on board who are fully vaccinated, the variants of concern, epidemiological data from the EDC, that's the daily reporting, epidemiological links between the cases, the number of hospital beds, ventilators, oxygen, other medical supplies on board relative to the number of cases on board. Essentially, is the cruise ship overwhelmed? Ship has not replied to the CDC's request for information in the last 48 days, and then during the past 7 days, the ship missed one or more submissions of the EDC form. So again, it's around reporting and what's going on the ship. And then this is a new one, a gray designated ship. As of July the 23rd, the CSO and accompanying measures such as technical instructions or non-binding recommendations for cruise ships arriving in, located within, or departing from a port in Florida. CDC is continuing to operate the CSO as a voluntary program for such ships that choose to follow the CSO measures voluntarily. Ships operating out of Florida ports that choose not to follow the CSO are designated as gray. This designation means that the CDC has not reviewed or confirmed the cruise ship's operators' health and safety. How about that? That right there is the CDC acknowledging the fact that they lost that court case in Florida. Previously to this gray designation, they didn't really have anything that would indicate that a cruise ship was cruising in Florida but not following the CDC's rules. If you remember, shortly after that ruling, CLIA, who represents the majority of ocean sailing cruise ships that's going out of Florida, they came and said, look, we're going to voluntarily follow what this, we're with the CDC. We're going to follow what the CDC says to do. We're still going to operate under the conditional sail order. And that's why when you go look at the cruise ship chart, you will notice that there's really no gray cruise ships. But I guess with this gray designation, it is an acknowledgement that the CSO is non-binding in Florida, and that only cruise ships that volunteer to be a part of the conditional sail order process will be color-coded. So it makes this chart continue to be helpful. You can look at your upcoming cruise and see how they're doing with reported cases on board, and you can also see if any of the ships are not following the conditional sail order. They would be a gray designation, but we don't have one of those for sure. But with that big pile of information in your head, let's talk about two things. Let's talk about the Norwegian Gem not being green. I know there are people out there that are probably excited that the Norwegian Gem is no longer green. They've said it loud, they've said it proud. The vaccine doesn't work. Of course there's going to be COVID on cruise ships. Well, first of all, the vaccine works. You got to understand what the point of the vaccine is. The point of the vaccine is to keep people from going to the hospital with COVID and to keep people from dying from COVID. If you look at the statistics on who is in the hospital right now, the majority, the overwhelming majority, in the past 90% majority, are people who are unvaccinated. And so the vaccine is doing its job. It is keeping people out of the hospital, and it's keeping people from dying from COVID. That's the whole point of the vaccine. Again, I recommend, if you don't have a really compelling reason not to get vaccinated, to get vaccinated. That's just my opinion, but all the numbers indicate that you have a better chance of surviving COVID if you have the vaccine opposed to not having the vaccine. And so, yeah, is it shocking that there is a COVID case on the Gem? No. I've said this for a while. I believe that COVID's going to be a part of all cruising, and I love the fact that this color system is here. It's orange, so that means that the cruise line, they're working in close conjunction with the CDC. They've got it handled. So while people will hold the Gem up and say, look, that means the vaccine doesn't work, I think most of us know that that's just a bad narrative. But let's talk about, is the CDC trying to destroy cruising? I see a lot of people out there that don't trust the CDC. I've read a lot of the rhetoric around that. I think I understand why people don't trust the CDC. We did a poll that asked very specifically, do you give any credence to the guidance that's put forth by the CDC? And a majority of people don't. Most people don't. And so I understand it. But to the question whether the CDC is trying to destroy cruising, I really don't know how you draw that conclusion. If the CDC was trying to destroy cruising or trying to shut down cruising, they're doing a poor job at it. They have the ability to turn cruising off, and yet here's more guidance where they're saying, here's some other things that you could try. Let's continue this relationship. Let's keep cruising going. Again, say what you want, use your energy any way that you want, but it's frustrating sometimes where people are so bought in to some of these false narratives and they put all their energy into it, where you could put your energy into something else, something more positive, even maybe a better conspiracy theory. But there's no indication that the CDC is trying to shut down cruising, because they have the levers to pull to shut down cruising. And so unless they're playing a long game and like 5 years from now they're going to shut down cruising, which doesn't make sense because this would be the right opportunity to shut it down. But hey, that's my opinion, and boom, that's your cruise news. I would love to hear your opinion. What do you think about these folks that are stranded in Greece? Does that turn you off from cruising? What about this testing at the cruise port? Join me in the comments. Tell the cruise lines what you would like to see them do. And the CDC, here they are with more rules and regs. I think it's funny that they gave Florida their own color, the little gray designation. Any and all topics on the table. Let's talk about it in the comments below. Thank you so much for checking out the show today. Please hit the like button or your princess medallion won't show up before your cruise. I got mine. This is Tony with Lido, Loca, and until the next time, we'll see you on the Lido. Bye.